Hello again, lovers of film music. This time we're pivoting back to soundtracks. Yes, I got more goods on the music supervisor trade from Tiffany Anders, who's been digging in the crates for film, television, and commercial productions for more than 15 years. Pulling the needle drops for a number of films, including personal favorites The End of the Tour and Like Crazy, and has been all over recent hit series on Hulu and Netflix, including Reservation Dogs and Season 1 of Beef. On her most recent project, the hit Netflix romantic psycho horror series, Something Very Bad Is Gonna Happen, Anders got to source from records that span generations and genres, often nabbing hidden period gems to go with those timeless hits. What I like about talking with music supervisors is that I get to find out how someone's musical taste and knowledge can add dimension to the narrative and reflect someone's personal history as well. In this case, I learned that Tiffany and I share some of that personal history during the thriving music scene of Lower Manhattan in the early 2000s. We get into that, what it was like sharing screen time with Something Very Bad Is Gonna Happen composer Colin Stetson, finding a common bond of music geekery with writer and director Sterling Harjo on his Hulu shows Reservation Dogs and The Lowdown, and some more fun soundtrack talk. When you find yourself singing along to the songs assembled for a film or a show, and just during the choruses because you don't know the words yet, you say, you know what, this person knows her stuff. I did that a lot listening back to the playlists on this one, and discovered a few new gems for myself that I have now tucked away for future occasions. Welcome all to the Tiffany Anders Chat. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, excited to talk to you in general because you're a music supervisor, and I've been doing this podcast about mostly focusing on film and television composers. But I realized that I wanted to branch out, and anybody that's involved in the music or the sound of the production itself, I'm interested. And that goes for music editors. I want to
yeah, that'll be great.
I've always wanted to get the perspective of somebody in the orchestra playing a score.
Yeah.
I thought that would be a cool thing.
Yeah.
What's it like in the room? Like, what are some of the funny things that happen?
Absolutely.
At Abbey Road or something like that.
Yeah.
But no, certainly music supervisors, because as I've said before, the fascination with film music started with soundtracks before it started with scores.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Like some of the first records I bought, I think, were soundtracks to films like, Purple Rain and Top Gun.
Oh, yeah.
And things like that. And it was just a way, this is what I love about it. It's a way to discover artists. I don't know, was that the same thing for you? Just kind of like, you might have liked a song in a movie, and then you get that album because of that song, but then suddenly 5 other bands.
Oh, yeah.
So is that what it was like for you?
Well, I mean, I think there's certain, in the 80s, which was my decade of growing up, I think we're lucky, right? That we had like the John Hughes and the Purple Rain. And that's kind of when the soundtrack thing with artists that weren't just scores, that had needle drops and songs, kind of really exploded. Yeah. I mean, previously you would have, you start seeing it trickling in the 60s and 70s. And certainly in the 50s, they made movies catered towards like, Elvis movies and, Jerry Lee Lewis and rock and roll was kind of coming up in movies too, but not to the extent where a narrative movie like 16 Candles or Pretty in Pink or even Ferris Bueller's Day Off, all the John Hughes movie was catering to teens by putting in new bands and stuff. It seems like it kind of exploded more in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, Purple Rain, that's a great example of something where I think the movie was created for the album, So hearing that and having a narrative go along with it was so like exciting as a child and somebody that was like loving music. For me, at that time I was consuming music like crazy. So having some sort of fun narrative movie along with music was really exciting for me.
But yeah, that's an unusual thing, which I don't think will ever happen again, right? That's just kind of like one of those things.
You mean
it's kind of a relic of that time?
Yeah.
Because that kind of coincidence of an artist blowing up and all of the songs being recorded and featured in the film, and then the film becomes a driver of the soundtrack and vice versa. That's something of the past, it seems like.
Well, I think it's just a rare. I don't think that couldn't happen again. I think that could definitely happen again.
Okay, good.
But I think that it's just, those are far and few between.
Yeah.
It's you can't crowd a market with those. So there are these little gems. One of my favorite TV shows as a child was The Monkees.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was exactly that. It was about a band. They all lived together. It was a comedy. And it was songs, it was songs that were written for, it was the same. It was even more extreme because it was a manufactured band for the TV show. And then they ended up becoming a real band.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. So stuff like that I love. I love when, I'm a pop culture fan. So I love I'm all behind a manufactured band with a TV show and, all that kind of stuff. It's really fun to me.
Yeah.
And I think that could happen again. I think they could do something like the Monkees again or Purple Rain again. It just would be a different kind of a thing.
I hope it cycles back.
Yeah.
That's the thing too, is one of my things is that I've just been lamenting the slow death of the soundtrack over the years, and certainly this century.
Yeah.
Even just like the physical form of it, like I connect it to memories. You have these visualizations of, you remember putting on the record, or you remember dancing in your living room to it, or you remember like what clerk at the record store recommended it to you, or whatever it is, or share, or letting your friend borrow it and never get it back, right? Like
yeah, physical media. It's well, I think that more record labels and studios are interested in vinyl releases. For one of my movies, I even had a cassette release of the soundtrack.
Which one was that?
Which was really cool. The end of the tour.
Oh, really?
They did a cassette release, and I think it was because, well, first of all, they had mentioned it, and I thought, that sounds really cool. Yes, please.
Yeah.
But the whole movie was set in the 90s, and it was like a road trip movie, pretty much. And so, and the cassette just factored in a lot in the story. So,
Yes.
it was interviews with David Foster Wallace. So he had a tape recorder a lot of the time in the movie. And then, the audio that they would have been listening to would have been radio or cassettes on the car.
Right.
So,
so it made sense.
So when they threw out that idea, Lakeshore Records threw that idea out, and I was like, yes, please, let's do cassettes.
You're trying to fool somebody, but you end up fooling yourself. You're reading from a season in hell, but you don't know what it's about. I listen to you now, maybe you listen to me.
That is cool. Yeah, Lakeshore is cool about that kind of thing. Like Mondo Records too, kind of keeping the soundtrack like experience as full as it can be. I mean, re-releasing records, reissues of things. But yeah, that's really cool. But that score was end of the tour was that mostly Danny Elfman's score and just like a few songs?
It was actually a lot of needle drops.
Oh, yeah.
It was a bunch. I don't know how many. I think there was 18, 20 needle drops, which was a lot.
But if you go to like Spotify now and you put an end of the tour, they're not all on there, right? It's not all.
It should be.
Really?
It should be. Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's Apple Music that I went to. That's the other thing that bothers me is that if you go to a soundtrack now, 90% of the songs are grayed out and you can't play them because of some sort of licensing. You can't even play it in sequence. So what is that? Can you tell me about that? What is the thing with that? It's just licensing and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a licensing thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I do remember because they did do a vinyl of End of the Tour too. And there was something about it's like a math issue, basically.
Okay.
There was you can only have 10 songs because of the way that the money and the royalties is divided up. I mean, I'm taking this from memory, and I haven't done this for a long time with actual soundtrack releases, so I might be wrong. I might be saying things wrong. But basically, generally, the overview was it gets divided up in so many ways. So you can only really have 10 songs on the physical soundtrack. So I don't know if that's true for Spotify, but it was true for the royalty rates on a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really annoying is what it is. You can't play play the soundtrack, you know?
I know.
If I go to Royal Tenenbaums, I can play the score, the Mark Mothersbaugh pieces, but I can't play Nico or Velvet Underground or The Clash or anything like that. And so you have to actually have the CD.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just becoming a me whinging about soundtracks podcast. But I don't know, how long have you been doing it for?
I have been doing this for 16 years, I think now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what has changed the most? And believe me, I want to talk about your current projects, but I'm really interested in this. What has changed the most in your time as a music supervisor in the process of artist relations, relationships with labels, the feeders of these of music that you might use, how you discover music? What has changed the most in your time?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, the first thing is that it used to be a lot harder to get certain artists to license their music. So I think some artists would be more discerning about some artists just wouldn't license their music. Mm-hmm. there was that a lot.
Yeah.
Where they just didn't want it in film and TV. And one of the big ones was Neil Young, who stood that ground for a really long time. And now he's sort of, amenable to certain projects. You can kind of get him to agree to something. But before it was just like a blanket no.
Right.
That's a big artist to think of, but little artists too would not license their music. So now I think because there's so much content, maybe because the content has changed a lot and there's more interesting showrunners and creators, I think maybe that helps with artists being more open to licensing their music, and they probably also just need the income. It's it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and then this project that you just did, which I really loved the show. Something very bad is going to happen. I spoke with the first supervisor I spoke with on my show. Was Trigotovin, and he had to do the. I don't know. Do you know him?
Yes.
He had to do the same kind of thing for Fallout, which is he's going back into the vaults, like the mid-century dusty record vintage vaults.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're doing that a lot in this show. I mean, I guess some of it's a nice mixture though. It's a mixture of contemporary stuff and even some stuff I loved the Animal Collective drop in the beginning.
Oh, I know. It's so good, right?
Come on, let go. Erratic scene.
gives you an idea of like, you know, these are young people on a road trip. You know?
Exactly.
Before we get into the haunt, it kind of establishes the kind of tastes, you know.
Yeah.
What they
exactly
like,
that.
what they're grooving to. So that must have been fun to kind of blend those two, the past and the present, right?
It was so fun. And it was kind of, you know, Haley, the showrunner, we really kind of, she's very young. She's 30 years old.
Okay.
So this is her first show, and she, you know, she's got a young person's sensibility, and we kind of bonded over music that we liked just in general, you know, Animal Collective being a big one.
Yeah.
When I was, you know, they're actually friends of mine, because when I was living in New York and I was a musician, we would play shows together. So I've known them for years. So when she mentioned Animal Collective, and I said, oh, let's definitely use them because I love them. She loves them, you know. So, and yeah, exactly to your point. It shows you what these characters are like in the first episode and what they're listening to, and they're young. And so we kind of had these new artists that her and I shared that we liked, that we wanted to see in the show. And then, you know, with the older music, I kind of just started delving into things that had themes around marriage.
Sure.
And particularly like female point of views of marriage. And like, you know, a lot of the girl groups from the 60s, everything was like, you know, the boy I'm going to marry and getting married and we're getting married. And, you know, it's so antiquated, these ideas around marriage. And as I was listening to it, I was like, wow, you know, things have really changed. You'd be hard pressed to find a song these days that has these kind of ideas around marriage in the lyrics, you know?
Right.
So I really was starting to love the idea of putting these songs in that had, because it's kind of creepy too, because they're from yesteryear, and it's this whole, it creates this whole world, you know, when she's kind of in her anxiety and commitment fears and getting pressure from the family, it's even more impacted by these old songs about marriage, you know?
It's so true. Like that, like what you're saying is so true. I think of the Paul Anka, "You Are My Destiny." It's like this, wow, the pressure is so heavy right now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the destiny. We have to be soulmates. What?
Yeah.
You know, and so I guess I worry though, like what you must worry that like, when you're leaning on lyrics in a source cue, there's a danger of it being too on the nose and like a hat on a hat. It's like, oh, you're just describing in a lyric what's happening. I mean, but I mean, I guess that was kind of more appropriate in this sense.
I was going to say, you know, it wouldn't work on a show like The Lowdown, but for this show, it works fucking great. Yeah. You know, like it's great. And actually, You Are My Destiny was one that I found just from reading the script.
Oh.
In the first summary that she'd given me, it was about, you know, the soulmates and the destiny and this. And I listened to that song and I was like, well, this sums up the show pretty great.
Yeah, it does.
And it has this heightened intensity to it. And there was something kind of Lynchian about it to me, like David Lynch. And like, you know, you wanted everything to feel surreal and intense.
You are my sweet chorus. You share my loneliness. You are my dream come true.
And it's creepy. It's just creepy too. When
it feels creepy.
It's super creepy. And then what was the one that was playing on the radio when, oh my God, the whole like birth scene and like that horrible, I don't want to spoil anything, but that really gross like birth scene. And what was there's like some song playing in the background that's like a love song, right?
Actually, You Are My Destiny is definitely playing on the radio during that scene.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Because I had to flag it because it was so gruesome.
Right. Right.
We had to make sure that it would be okay with Paul Anka.
Yeah.
Because when you start getting into that realm in horror where things start to get, and this is my first horror show, by the way.
Yeah.
So I wasn't prepared. I mean, I was, but I wasn't quite prepared to getting no's based that on it being a horror show.
Yeah.
Just that, oh no, we don't do horror. So we got a couple no's based on that. And then, you have to be very, very clear about what's going on in the scene in case it offends the artist, know? So that was one that I remember we really had to, make sure that Paul Anka was okay with it.
For sure. Something that's interesting too that I've noticed is that you've had some projects where you've gotten to work alongside or opposite, if you will, this amazing score composer, right? So you have Colin Stetson here.
Yeah.
You had Dustin O'Halloran for Like Crazy.
Indeed, yes.
That was a beautiful one. Of course, Danny Elfman that we spoke about before. Who am I missing? Who is there another one that you really?
Oh God, so many good ones.
Right.
As you're mentioning them, it sounds. I feel so lucky. Bobby Krilic for the first season of Beef.
Yes,
he was great. On the Lowdown, we had J.D. McPherson, who is a rock guy. He's in a band, and he writes for other people, and he plays with Robert Plant, but he's just a great all-around musician and music lover, and he did an incredible score for the Lowdown, his first.
Oh, wow. That's great.
So, I've loved working with musicians that just come in and do scores too.
Yeah.
And he was one of those. So, yeah. I love working with composers.
I mean, is it more or less? I mean, I guess the level of kind of interaction or sharing or collaboration, it depends on what project, right?
Exactly.
With Colin Stetson here, I mean, his score is so dominant in this show. Yeah. And it has to be. And it has to really be one of the shake you out of your boots kind of scores.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of, do you feel like you're almost taking you have to kind of take a back seat in a way to let the score be out front and you're just kind of filling in the other.
Oh yeah. And his score is incredible on this, and it might be one of my favorite scores of any show that I've worked on. But that's 100% him. And it needed, I also know that with this genre, different genres need more amount of music and versus, needle drops and score, something like The Lowdown heavily relied on needle drops because it was setting a vibe, and kind of the way that Sterling shows are, who did Reservation Dogs and The Lowdown that I worked on both of those. His shows are kind of like that. They don't need a ton of score. A horror show absolutely needs a ton of score. I mean, you start thinking about that when you're reading the scripts. You're like, oh, it's going to need tension here and more tension here and more build up here and more, so yeah, I think genres, definitely with horror, you're going to need a lot of score, And
in that case, the source cues tend to be more diegetic, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even like actually, there was one part of this show where towards the end, I think it was the wedding day, where you have this kind of frenzied electronic cue that I thought for a second might be a source piece, but it was actually Colin Stetson doing that, right?
That's so funny. Was it
it's tracking Rachel through the whole house and she's trying to do 10 things at once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Colin. There was one episode, it wasn't that one, but there was one episode where we had a needle drop, an electronic song needle drop type of thing.
Right.
And we thought, actually, Colin could probably beat this. So let's have him do it instead. So, and he did. I mean, he was so incredible.
Did you find yourself working with him at all? Like figuring out, like, did any of his cues overlap any of your source pieces? No.
Sadly, we actually didn't work together that much because, well, a couple reasons. One of the interesting things about the way that Colin works is that he composes a lot of the music beforehand.
Oh, okay.
So it has to be kind of fitted with a music editor to picture.
Yeah.
So, there was this whole process that the music editor and Colin and Haley and the whole team had to go through with him to kind of align the music with the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I just stayed in my corner doing my needle drops.
Right.
So
right.
That was my focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
have there been projects where you were kind of figuring stuff out and in terms of situating your music with the composers more than this one?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot. I would say probably, Like Crazy is a good example of that, probably.
Yeah.
With Dustin.
Right.
Where we, really worked together on how that was all going to flow and the sound and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah. One drop on there that I really wanted to call out was it Impossible by Figurine?
Oh, yeah.
That's
so
a
funny.
deep cut. Yeah. That is a serious, of that time. That is a really of that time deep cut.
I know.
That must have been fun to find out. I got that on some CD that my friend in grad school gave me or something that was it wasn't even a known artist at the time, really. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the music, I mean, here's a situation where, having a limited budget, and working with a filmmaker who's young and likes music and wants to use a bunch of stuff and saying, okay, well, you can't get this. How about figurines? Or how about this instead? So on that movie, we had a lot of stuff like that. We had this band called the Marionettes, mm-hmm. and they were from, I think they were from Stockholm. And, that replaced some indie rock band that just said, no, we don't want our music in the, so we had to dig. And then, when you dig, you find new things that are great. Yeah. And that was the situation on Crazy with all the music, including Dustin, because Drake had one of his records that was just piano pieces on some indie label. And I said, well, let's see if we can ask him if he wants to compose. And Drake was like, really? Could we do that? I was like, let's try. Yeah. So all of us were very new, and Drake, me, and the composer, and it was all kind of our first things. And, that's when you get to be really creative, is when you're limited and you're trying stuff out and you're trying new things. And that's how it all happened on that movie.
Would you say that's one of the projects you've worked on that represents the most of your tastes and interests, or what was one that really did, where you felt I guess sometimes you have to kind of fill in what is appropriate, and you may or may not love it.
Yeah.
What is a project where you said, "Oh man, these are my jams. I love this stuff." Like,
Well, I mean, just first off the bat, and it could just be me at this time in my life, but the lowdown, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
That's all my music.
Is it?
I would listen to that all the time. Yeah. Well, one of the things that like Sterling and I first, before he did Reservation Dogs, him and I like were chatting on Instagram. I had met him through my mom, actually, because my mom had done some Native American Sundance labs, and she said, oh, there's all these great Native filmmakers, and she said, you should meet Sterling. He really has good music taste. He likes Lee Hazelwood and Jesse Ed Davis. So him and I were like Instagram friends, and we'd send each other things, so. And then he had Reservation Dogs. He said, I have this project I want to talk to you about. And I was thinking it was some indie movie. And, it was a series. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, this sounds fun. So yeah, I mean, Sterling and I think we're pretty aligned musically and like what we like.
Yeah, that must be good.
Yeah.
That must be a good feeling. I mean, yes, Reservation Dogs, it's all over the map, that music. It's like from every genre.
Yeah.
Did that give you the most territory to kind of explore and find things and like anything goes, like if it fits kind of situations?
You know what? It was like that a little bit because the way that Sterling approached the music on that show particularly, is just like if he likes something, if he was into something at that moment, he'd be like, oh, let's find a place for that. Let's put this in. So there was no overthinking about like what's going to be the soundtrack and how cool is this soundtrack going to be. It was just like, oh, we like Beat Happening. Let's use it here. Or we like, he called me one day about the Spaceman 3 song. He'd said, well, this is funny. I preface this by saying he told me for season 2, or I think it was season 2, he said, we need to have more Native artists. We got to get more Native artists in this season. And I said, definitely, let's do that. So he calls me and I'm sending him all this stuff. I found like psychedelic Native musicians from the 70s. Like I've really dug deep. And he's like, hey, how hard is it to clear Spaceman 3? He texts me this, and I'm like, Spaceman 3, the British band? So, he just was like vibing on a Spaceman 3 song.
I love Spaceman 3.
And he was just like, I want to use this song in this episode. I was like, let's do it. So yeah, I mean, him and I are like, we're pretty much the same age. We listen to a lot of the indie rock from the 90s, and we like a lot of the same stuff. So that makes it pretty easy, and fun, super fun to work on.
Yeah. And what I love about those situations too, is that for someone like me, it's like, I might say, oh yeah, what's that Spaceman 3 song? But also I'm getting introduced to like a bunch of music that I don't know or don't know very well.
Yeah.
And that's what I miss about the soundtrack experience. I mean, it is replicable to a certain extent with a playlist, but it's just somehow not the same thing. And
I understand that. Yeah. Yeah, I do.
I mean, like when I was some of the things, like for instance, like Cameron Crowe, I mean, I was basically introduced to grunge through the single soundtrack.
Really?
I'm not ashamed to say that. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't think I was that. Honestly, I'm not afraid to say this either. I wasn't really that knowledgeable about Radiohead until Everything in Its Right Place on Vanilla Sky.
I love it.
And, and then you also have like looper on there, and I don't think I was that familiar with Sigur Rós before I heard that soundtrack.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I mean. That's the fun of it for me. I mean, do you have like some of the bands that you really grew to love you found on a soundtrack?
Oh, God.
There have to be, right? It's kind of like you have to think back though. It's kind of like one of those things you have to like
I know.
go back into the memory banks.
I'm trying to think of soundtracks that I listen to a lot. I mean, well, here's a good example. I mean, Reservoir Dogs. Little Green Bag.
Yeah.
Little Green Bag.
For sure.
Looking back on the track for a little green bag. Got to find just the kind of losing my mind. Out of sight in the night, out of sight in the day. Looking back on the track, gonna do it my way. Looking back on the track.
That's like one of the best songs, openings. I mean, I think in terms of soundtracks and the feel and a vibe, speaking of just going off vibe, I mean, I think Quentin Tarantino and Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction created like, you know, that was stuff that people hadn't heard before, or it was used in such a way that it, you know, really was memorable and felt cool. And, you know, so, I mean, Little Green Bag, when I saw that, I was a teenager. And I remember going, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
I love this so much over that whole opening. It just was excellent. And, you know, he uses music in a way that I love. And I feel like his soundtracks are always something where you could discover
100%.
some weird thing that, you know,
all the
that'll
surf,
be on your
Yeah.
on your playlist forever.
like the surf
know?
rock really from Pulp Fiction was kind of like what,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's what really, I remember listening, you know, and you'll be a woman soon.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, watching Uma Thurman dance to that, like I hear that song and that's all I see in my head.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, that's a really,
And you know, these are all songs that he just liked.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and I think that's what's cool about it too, is like you're just getting somebody's vision and you're getting their playlist.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
of what they're into. And, you know, I don't know. I like that. I like that it's not, you know, overly thought out and overly curated. Just make it fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's right.
I feel like we did that a bit in Something Very Bad too.
Uh-huh.
You know, I think that Haley had that kind of sensibility, even though we had like a direction, and it was fun to have that direction of like, you know, oh, let's find these fucked up songs about marriage, or, you know, I think that, you know, she too was like, I just, you know, I like this band Black Country New Road. Let's
Yeah.
put them in. And then, you know, the Geese song.
I was going to say, you got
funny.
the Geese drop in there, the
It was
contemporary.
so funny because we had something else in there and it wasn't totally working on that scene. And she's just driving. So I was like, we should have something contemporary. And then, you know, I was like listening to a bunch of stuff. And then again, lyrically, it just landed perfectly. And I was like, oh, we got to do this. I was like, is this, you know, I brought it to Haley. She's like, this is perfect. Let's do it. Let's use Geese.
Let's just use Geese.
Let's use Geese.
Yeah, you don't get that opportunity very often where you're doing like Paul Anka and then you're also putting in a song that just came out.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's got to be fun. But I think, you know what I thought of though? And I'm not teasing, but it just made me think of that Jack Black line in High Fidelity where he goes, "Oh, kind of a new record. A slide declaration of new classic status slipped into a list of old safe ones." And it's like, that's immediately the line.
Well, you got to do that,
You got to
man.
do it.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hip. It's now. It's young.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Exactly. And yeah, a couple other ones on there. You had like Deadly Valentine by Charlotte Gainsbourg and
Yep.
You Are the Blood, the Castanets.
Yes.
So these are, and this is mostly, I kind of feel like this is all when Rachel is in the car. That's when this stuff, right? This is all when that stuff is playing.
Because she's outside of the creepy world, right?
Yes.
So she's back in reality.
Yes.
So when she's back in her reality, you have more of what she might be listening to herself, in her normal day. And when things get creepy, they get creepy and old and reverby.
That's right.
Intense songs,
That's right. But I thought that Castanets one was kind of like doing both. It's like,
yes,
it's
definitely
creepy, but it's kind of not like the same kind of creepy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All through the soil and up in those trees.
Do you watch a lot of stuff, and are you like keen ear to what songs are being chosen, or do you like to kind of all the time? Yeah.
Now, yeah.
Now
now
you can't help it, right?
I can't help it. And then, a lot of the times I'm going, sometimes I'll be like, that's a weird choice, or that's an amazing choice.
Yeah.
I wish I had thought of that myself. That happens.
That has to happen a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then, and then I'm thinking about the price.
Right.
I'm like, damn, they must have spent a lot on that.
Yep.
What was the music budget on this show?
Yeah. Like, how did they clear
like
it?
I can't separate. I'm just like, oh, that was expensive.
Yeah. Right.
Whatever.
Yes.
So that happens. But no, I mean, I still get so inspired by, how music is placed. And I think, I told Thomas Golubic.
I was going to mention him, yeah.
At the end of Breaking Bad, that use of the Badfinger song, like, gave me chills, and it still had that effect on me.
Which one?
They used Baby Blue at the end of
last
Breaking
track.
Bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like, this is giving me chills.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
What is it with that guy? He knows, like, he's like the Rain Man of music supervisors. Like, he has a photographic memory on artists and songs. I don't know, like, he's got a deep well, that guy. So you know him?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Do you guys talk shop a lot, or?
When we're together in a room, I think when you put any music supervisors together in a room, they're going to talk shop.
Yeah.
Because the job is so hard. And there's so many minute details and just so much shit that you go through that nobody understands. Like, you can't explain it unless you're in it.
Yeah.
And so, we had the Guild of Music Supervisors Awards a few months ago, and it was just great to be in a room of people who did my job, because a lot of people don't understand the minutiae of all the stuff that goes into it. And I think if you get two music supervisors together, they're going to be talking shop,
I geek out about this stuff. I'll just go on, like, for instance, when in the first scene of Something Very Bad Is Gonna Happen, they're listening to Johnny Cash, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and then I'm like, wait, so It Ain't Me, Babe, who wrote that? Did Johnny Cash write that, or did Bob Dylan write that? And then I go into like this whole thing about like listening to the Bob Dylan version versus the Johnny Cash version. And I just think this is such it's like a fun interactive way to appreciate a show that goes beyond just seeing it, So,
I think so too.
Yeah. So,
I agree. I agree.
And I'm glad that I can tell your heart is in it, and your taste and heart and interest lie in the same place. So I'm happy that you're you're doing what you're doing, and I hope you get.
I'm happy too. I love this job. So yeah, I'm a music nerd, and I've just been collecting records since I was like 6 years old.
Yeah. So the Lowdown, that's coming out when?
Well, they're shooting season 2 right now. I think it's coming out October, fall. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the next big thing for the coming up for you, or you got something before that? All right. Well, I haven't seen season 1, so I'll catch up with that, and then.
Watch season 1. You're gonna like it.
All right, I will. I know, and I'm such an Ethan Hawke fan. Okay.
Lots of music.
Yeah.
Tons of music in it. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Tiffany, it was
All
so
right.
great to talk to you. Hopefully, we will chat
You
again
too.
sometime.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Charles.